This video will show you how to access an online concordance and also how to access an online commentary, both of these in the service of studying the meaning of a particular word in a particular passage.
We'll show you here how to use a free online concordance that's offered by Bible Hub. That's biblehub.com/concordance. Suppose, for example, that you're reading in Mark chapter 6 and you come across in verse 52 the word heart. The passage reads, "But their heart was hardened." If you wanted to find out what that word was, come to this screen of biblehub.com, click on the brown icon that reads Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. And now you're presented with the next screen. Let's go directly to the search bar at the top and type in the passage. So Mark 6:52. Enter that and notice what appears. What you're presented with then is the Greek text. So the reading here, verse 52, this is the Greek word order. You don't have to know Greek to isolate the meaning or the particular word that's being used. Just look at the interlinear. That's this tan-colored script. Again, it's word for word. Continues down to this next line. And here you see the word heart. So, cardia, and they've transliterated it here. So cardia is the word in Greek underlying the word heart. Do keep in mind that this is version specific. So being that it's in working with Strong's, this will be a concordance on the King James Version. So you need to identify the word in the King James Version, even though the base version that you may be working from might be NRSV. In order to search for the Greek word using Strong's Concordance, you'll have to figure out what that word was in the King James. So here's our King James translation, and we see that heart is cardia. The numbers that are across the top above the transliteration then are the Strong's code numbers. Each word from the Bible is assigned a number in the Strong's listing. This word happens to be number 2588. Simply by clicking on it, it'll bring you to a page that provides this information.
At this point, you're ready to fill in the first piece of information for your word study, and that is writing down in transliteration, that is in English alphabet characters, what is the basic word that pertains to that you're studying. So in this case, you would want to write down cardia. The next step that we'll take involves range of meaning. The idea here is to answer the question, given this basic word, cardia in the Greek, how many ways can it be translated? How many different translations is it able legitimately to support? Notice we're not limiting it to this verse right now. We'll come back to this verse later, but we're asking across all of its usages within the Greek New Testament, how many different ways has it been translated? You can get a little bit of an idea of that by looking at the right column as you see some other passages containing it, but that's not going to be a real satisfactory way to get the broad picture. Instead, we want to come over to the left here. We get a little bit of help from this word usage. It says literally it's the heart. So that would be the literal or the anatomical meaning in the case of a word related to a body part. They say we want to keep in mind that at times it has to do with the mind, it has to do with character, inner self, will, intention, center. I've purposely worded that it has to do with. In other words, we're not saying that this usage line gives word for word legitimate replacement translations. It's just talking about the general zone. Again, keep in mind what we're looking for now is range of meaning, and that's actual legitimate usage in translation. Under this helps word studies, we can get a little bit of an idea. We have this description provided, the affective center of our being. So the center related to feeling. Another, capacity of moral preference, volitional desire, choice. Someone else by the name of Archer has said it is the desire producer that makes us tick. That sounds like a somewhat colloquial one, doesn't it? But they're talking about longings, aren't they? All right, that's helpful. We're beginning to get a bigger picture of this word in its Greek usage, New Testament usage. What do we find here under NAS? That's New American Standard, an exhaustive concordance that's dedicated to this version. Well, we find here under NASB translation, New American Standard Bible Translation, here this is a little more useful because it gives us a sense of the distribution of the various range of meaning choices within this particular New American Standard Bible version. So, of the various quantity of times it shows up in the Greek New Testament, 102 times it is translated there with the word heart. The next one is pretty similar, isn't it? A possessive form, and heart's just a plural form. So those group together pretty closely. Twice, the NASB translator said, we don't want heart for the connotations that has in the English language. No, what's going on here is mind. That's interesting. Or plural minds. I'm curious which it is that's been translated quick. What passage? There's one time where they said it's more like spirit. Now, Greek has another word that we routinely translate spirit, but there was one place where they said, this is what we think it is. So we're beginning to get a sense of the range of translation here according to the New American Standard Bible translating team. Let's go a little bit deeper, and here we have access to Thayer's Greek lexicon. Again, lexicon is a dictionary for classical language such as Greek or Hebrew or Latin. And they are telling us about this word cardia. Now you are finding the Greek script fairly freely used, but you'll just have to believe that this is the, if you don't have the Greek ability, that they're staying with the same word. Let's see what they're telling us. Giving us a little bit of background in the classical Greek, aren't they? Talking about a certain form that's almost always in Homeric Greek. So they're giving us details about spelling. That's not particularly useful to us right now. Now, under the end of that entry, here's a little interesting bit of information. The Septuagint for lave and levav. So they're telling us that when the translators of the Septuagint ran into these two words, which are heart in Hebrew, then cardia is the word they used to translate it. That's not a piece of information you can use right now, but just be aware that these kind of resources are watching for translation trends that would have influenced the New Testament community. It's probably more than you needed to know, right? Let's see what happens when we go to the specific meanings that this Thayer's lexicon provides for us. So Arabic numeral 1, they're saying the anatomical meaning, the organ in the body, center of circulation. So literal organ, the body. And then we begin to broaden out a bit. The seat and center of all physical and spiritual life. Vigor and sense of physical life. Now we are broadening out. We're getting the usage of and connotation of heart metaphorically. We're broadening out our range of meaning, aren't we? How about 2 subpoint B, the inner man, the inner person, with the idea of thoughts, passions, desires, appetites, and so forth. Notice as we're going through this, we're finding some Bible passages where these meanings may be seen or may be attested. Once again, I expect these are all going to be King James, since that's the inroad we've used to get here. So if you're working from NRSV or something else, and you open up one of these through Thayer's, you might find it's different. It's been translated differently in NRSV than it was in Thayer's, but at least it does get you back to the Greek underlying either what you have in NRSV or what you have in King James. As you can see, we can gain benefit to read, in fact, just reading some of these bold words, scanning those, we begin to get a broader sense of the range of meaning. Notice this, the understanding faculty of intelligence. So we're moving away clearly from the corporeal, the anatomical heart. We're moving away from desires. Now we're moving to thinking. So in some situations, it's the faculty of intelligence that's meant by cardia. I think you get the idea how one can use particularly the Thayer's Greek lexicon in order to build out our sense of the range of meaning. It is this range of meaning that translators reflect on and have access to as they make a decision, an interpretive choice. How should it be rendered in this passage of Mark chapter 6? And by engaging this word study, we're allowing you to operate at that level of the word study interpreter. The next thing that you'll be doing in the assignment is to indicate which of the range of meaning, which one you think fits best in Mark 6, and explaining why. After we've located the underlying original language word, and after we have harvested a sense of the range of meaning for which this word is capable of being rendered, and after we have indicated our choice, what is our preferred among the range of meaning, and explained why, then let's go to the commentaries. And there are several commentaries that are available online. This portion of the video will show you how to access them. Here we are at the seminary main page. We want to come to Services. The tab at the top that's labeled Services, then drop down under Student Services to Library. You can access this also through the university library page, but you'll want to eventually make your way to the seminary library because they make several of these items much more easily accessible. In the tabs on the left, let's go to Biblical Studies. Keep in mind we're looking for commentaries. This page gives us commentaries right across the top. Several resources are combined with the commentaries, also dictionaries on this page. We want to come down here to a list of e-commentaries by book of the Bible. Now we are dropped into one of several tabs, Old Testament, New Testament, and non-canonical. By default, we're in the Old Testament. So if you're looking for the Gospel of Mark and you don't see it here, remember that's because we need to come to the tab on the left and get into the New Testament zone. Now you can see we're in the New Testament zone. In order to access commentaries on Mark, let's click on that link. The Anchor Yale Bible Commentary on Mark 8-16 won't help us because our passage is earlier than that. It's Mark chapter 6. I see that Bill Lane's commentary is included. He's an excellent scholar, let's take a look there. This is a single volume, and all that it treats is the Gospel of Mark. I had the privilege to get briefly acquainted with Professor Lane when he was teaching at Seattle Pacific. I was no longer a student there. I was adjunct faculty, and he was an outstanding scholar. As much as anything, besides his scholarship, I appreciated his heart. He really wanted people to connect with God. All right, we're beginning to drill down. We've clicked on contents. Scrolling down, then, we can fast forward to particular chapters. Our passage is in chapter 6. Here's the full text of chapter 6 commentary by Professor Lane. And since it's in verse order, we'll just scan down a bit until we see chapter 6, verse 51. 42 to 44, we're getting close. Here's the section. For him, it's section 5, Lord of the Sea. Stretches through 52. We can see our particular verse that we're interested in. 52 reads, "For they understood not concerning the loaves, but their heart was hardened." Just offhand, I did not check to see whether this series, Gospel of Mark volume in this particular series, had a prescribed, established version that the commentator worked from, or does this represent his own translation? You could check that in the introduction. So we don't know whether or not that was his personal choice or whether it was dictated by the commentary series. Now we come to Professor Lane's comments on 51 and 52. Let's see if we can find where he's talking about heart in chapter 6, verse 52. As I read over the material that Professor Lane presents here, insights concerning the hardness of heart begin to unfold here at point 2, when he says the problem of understanding is not intellectual but existential. It's a matter of faith. Number 3 again, disciples' reaction is one characterized by not understanding. And now he comes to this phrase, the hardness of heart, and makes a rather astonishing statement. Mark indicates at this stage in Jesus' ministry, the disciples are not essentially different from his opponents, who also fail to recognize his unique character. And they also then exhibit hardness of heart. Drawing then from Professor Lane's comments, I would return back to what we've excavated in terms of range of meaning and my own choice, the word that I landed on to translate heart in this portion of Mark 6. And I would say it looks like Professor Lane is saying there is more than just a mental block that's going on here. Especially this phrase suggests that. The disciples' misunderstanding reflects unbelief. They are seeing things, they can't believe it's true. So these are some of the sentiments from Professor Lane that I would want to draw into my report and then interact with them. Do I concur with Professor Lane, or do I feel that it's an interesting idea but may not be fully supported by the passage? These are the ways that we would want to incorporate a commentary into our word study. The same could be done, incidentally, with a journal article. If we were to look up a journal article dealing with this particular passage, we could then interact with that writer and report on it and be informed. We may agree or we may disagree, but at least we will be in a broader conversation concerning responsible interpretation of this particular word in this particular passage.